Hello everyone, this is part 7 of What If Naruto Formed a New Team, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. The small tea house that Haku had selected was a place completely and utterly alien to Tenten. It was a popular date destination, and she had never been taken anywhere before. I like tea, so why haven't I ever set foot in a place as mundane as a tea house? It wasn't as if she needed an escort to take her to local hubs. Haku looked to her while she thought, and she gave him her most convincing smile. Well, being uncultured isn't as bad as smelling of body odor, and I definitely do right now. Her afterthought made her flinch. She couldn't do anything about it. Tenten was not the sort of person to be pointedly self-conscious, but Haku had put her totally on the spot after training with Hyuga Neji, of all times, and taken her to a nice cafe while she was still bruised and sweaty and out of breath. And yet, somehow, she hadn't bothered to voice this distressing matter to Haku at all because she was, to say the least, so very astounded that he had even brought her anywhere for purposes other than training. Tenten couldn't quite bring herself to complain either. It was Haku, who, despite her disheveled state, still wanted to get to know her, which was a true first on all accounts. Lee doesn't really count, and Neji. Neji doesn't care to know anyone really, so I should relax and have fun. Or, enjoy myself. Yes, that sounds about right. Tenten didn't deny that he had flair, as Haku sat across from her at a smaller, more secluded table, still smiling. Not that he appeared to be a complete flirt, because it was hard for her to accept that anyone would want to flirt with her. Your sensei and Lee, they're very passionate. Haku was considerably polite, so she refrained from laughing at the use of the word passionate. All the energy on your team. How do you and Neji-san keep up with them? A very relevant question indeed. That's the funny thing, Tenten said while inspecting a lovely patch of bruising skin above her elbow. We don't exactly keep up, at least, we're at a different pace than they're at. Haku gave her a mild look, so she continued, well, I can't say for sure that we're even on the same planet, though we may be on the same team. It was odd how seriously Tenten had meant it. Haku's smooth chuckle pierced the air right on time, and it was then she knew why he was desired by nearly every girl in the Ninja Academy, or the majority of Konoha most likely. He wasn't perfect, but he was somewhere dangerously close to it. She then acknowledged on the most minimal, harmless level that existed that she was attracted to him. No use in making a raucous about it. A waitress came by for their orders, unanimously jasmine tea, and then left quickly. She was unable to stop herself from blushing. Tenten felt a subject change would get the ball rolling. I take it that you passed the graduation exam. They were both grinning when he nodded. I knew you would. There are few shinobi who I've seen handle senbon as well as you did, and in such a short time for that matter. Again, I must thank you for the recommendation. Haku eyed a purplish bruise near her shoulder while adding, though I don't think I'll ever compare to you in terms of shinjutsu, Tenten-chan. Smart boy, change the honorifics after my teammates aren't around. She found it a refreshing switch. Why don't you tell me about your team? She soldiered on, miffed that she was having slight difficulty focusing. Have you gotten any missions yet? No missions just yet, since it was just today we've been validated. He briefly wondered where his companions were at that precise moment. My teammates are Uzumaki, Naruto, and Gaara, my lifelong friends. Lucky. She congratulated him, resting her chin on her hands and leaned on the table's edge. Our mentor is one of the legendary three. Tenten jumped up without warning and her hands down on the table. You're being trained by Tsunade-sama. She almost screamed it. All universal irony must have made it so the boy she handed a fistful of senbon a short time ago would be trained by her idol. He smiled, and gently corrected her, no, Jiraiya, the toad hermit, actually. She relaxed and settled back into her seat, ignoring the strange looks directed at him. Oh, well, that's still impressive. What's he like? A pause. Haku decided to be truthful, frighteningly perverted, but undoubtedly powerful. Tenten raised an eyebrow in concern. He also has a fondness for making complete fools out of my friends and me. The Kunoichi sighed. I'd trade Guy Sensei for him any day. The waitress returned with their beverages and set them down before hurrying off to another table, still beet red after laying eyes on Haku. Haku took a small sip of tea. I know we both are on separate teams, but I was hoping that if an opportunity presents itself we could spend more time together. Somewhere in the back of her head, she heard alarm bells going off, for training. In our free time, only if you'd like, he answered, and her stomach constricted nervously, but it also would be a good idea to train more with Senbon, I think. You really are talented. Tenten nodded slowly, and lifted her cup, gulping rather than sipping. Oh no. I was hoping he just wanted to talk about Senbon, or training but he's actually coming on to me. Like he likes me or something. Clearly he wasn't aware of how inadequate she was feeling at the moment. She put on another smile and tried to clear her head. Maybe I'm overreacting. He's constantly being chased by girls, so he'd probably only be interested in friends. Tenten, are you alright? The Kanoiki looked up. Oh yeah, I'm fine. Haku didn't look fully convinced, but thankfully the waitress came to her rescue, asking him if he'd like anything else. Friends. She scoffed inwardly. What friends drink tea together? The waitress ended her distraction and Haku returned his attention to Tenten. I hope you like dango. I do. She was stymied. How does he know this stuff? Tenten didn't want to come across as rude, but she was not quite ready for Haku and the romantic vibe he was giving off. Training was familiar and something she enjoyed, and she was nearly ashamed that she wasn't handling the situation better. Is this a date? I guess it is. It isn't what I had envisioned. She paused. Well, what I envisioned had a lot more weapons involved, so maybe I really am socially lacking in this department. He smiled at her patiently, respecting her while he noted that she was busy with her own thoughts. I don't think I've ever met a person so attractive that it's staggering to be around them. Tenten smiled to herself. Maybe it's because I'm spending too much time with Lee. Haku was inspecting the tea leaves at the bottom of his empty cup with curiosity not dissimilar from a kitten's. He really is patient. Fancy that. I do like Haku, just in the friendly sort of way, involving pointy objects. Tenten took another long moment to see if that had made any sense. Maybe now is a good time to bring this up. Haku. He gave her a knowing look. Is this a date? Haku had only seen Gaara so elegantly. I believe so. He answered with as much aplomb as he could muster. She couldn't help the smile that peeked onto her lips. That's a first. Taking a badly beaten, sweat rag of a girl on a date. How very entertaining. Haku, you are a rarity. The dango arrived and they both helped themselves as Tenten went on. Sorry that I spaced out before. I'm back with you now. And thank you. For what? For your semi-unnatural patience and the tea and snacks. She nearly patted herself on the back for such an honest reply, even though this has been slightly awkward. She nodded, savoring the sweet bean paste. Yes, the awkwardness was my fault. I'm not used to this sort of thing, but hey, I'm really enjoying myself, so it's balancing out. You seem to be thinking very hard after I mentioned us spending more time with each other, he added carefully. Curse him and his powers of observation. Yeah, about that. Tenten took one last sip of tea. I do want to spend time with you, believe me I do. I just want that time to be spent training, if that's alright. Haku smiled, admiring her work ethic. It is alright, in fact, probably time better spent than drinking tea. Among other things, she thought while trying to ignore how his storm-colored eyes caught the light very nicely. Tenten gave him a confused look after he stood up. I know you were just training with Neji-san, but perhaps we could improve our shinjutsu now, if you have the energy. Haku suggested. This place is a bit stuffy. She took the last skewer of dango and also stood. Energy. You fed me. There's little to debate. Haku smiled to himself as he left the tab money on the table and then followed her outside, noting how he also preferred training over the dim lighting of the tea house. We'll go back to my team's training area. Tenten finished the last of the dango. I have targets set up there, and if you're really good you can start throwing Senbon at Neji for practice. Haku gave her a quizzical look. On the off chance that I hit him. You most likely won't be able to. His chitin is impenetrable. She then smirked. Though, who knows? You're also a genius. You might figure something out. The following day, Naruto and Gaara had an uncharacteristic interest in how Haku's attempted date had gone as they painted a fence for their first D-rank mission. They were very amused with how it turned out. It was awkward, but still enjoyable, I think. Haku paused mid-stroke, but then, we decided to train with Senbon and it was. What? Did you poke her eye out or something? Naruto had a healthy fear of needles after Haku's demonstration on him the day before. No, her teammates, they. What about them? Gaara prompted. It seemed that Neji had been training with Lee while we were gone, quite thoroughly. Haku frowned to himself, not sure if he could call the crumpled mess that was Lee an object of actual training. Tenten was upset about it. Naruto squinted his eyes. Well, maybe he was jealous. The dark-haired boy looked to him, completely puzzled. Jealous? Why? From how you described Lee, he seems to be too lively, Gaara suggested, siding with Naruto. You removed Tenten from their squad, which caused a. He searched for a description, violent imbalance. So he probably just went off on the poor guy. Naruto nodded to himself, you know, just to vent some steam. I wouldn't take Neji to really be the jealous type, Haku admitted, continuing his painting. He didn't seem bothered when I came looking for Tenten. Gaara seemed to be deep in thought. I wonder how much he has improved. Naruto looked lost. Who? Neji? Haku clarified, still up to speed. Yes, maybe we should train together someday, to test our skills. Even after what he did to Lee. Naruto had somehow become the voice of reason during the conversation. There was a silence between Gaara and Haku. Before Haku spoke quietly, maybe it would be better if we just stayed friends. I don't want to cause any problems for Tenten's team. It seems to be a little late for that. Gaara pointed out. Are you done over there yet? Jiraiya's voice rang out from the top of a nearby brick wall, where he was beginning work on another one of his novels. The guy in that yard keeps yapping at you three and it's disturbing my work. Naruto threw his paintbrush at the Sennin's head, missing him by inches. It wouldn't take so damn long if you were down here helping us, Ero Sennin. I'm busy. Haku observed an old, toothless man on the opposite side of the fence that they had been painting a bright white for the past 15 minutes. He seemed inordinately distressed, but his incessant chatter made no sense at all. The water manipulator paused and watched as Naruto scrambled angrily over to Jiraiya's spot to retrieve his brush. Gaara continued his work while glaring impassively at the fence. It occurred to him that something was indeed amiss. He quickly realized what the problem was but feared to speak about it. What's wrong? Gaara's voice was monotone against the arguing going on between Naruto and their lazy mentor. Well, it seems that there's been a mistake. Haku sighed, though Gaara wasn't much deferred in his work. Get up off your old man. Naruto was tired of trying to motivate the pervert. You should be helping too. This place is freaking huge. Jiraiya-sensei. The toad hermit responded to Haku's partially urgent voice and looked down to him. What now, Haku? Naruto huffed, not pleased that he was so easily ignored. Sensei, the man who lives here, I do believe he's been trying to tell us that there's been a mix-up. Haku indicated the old man that they had been ignoring. Like what? Jiraiya still didn't seem very interested. That we are painting the wrong fence, Gaara answered gruffly, nodding his head in the direction of another fence across the street that looked to be in desperate need of a new coat of paint. The blonde hurled his brush again in frustration. Great. Our first mission and we screwed up. Maybe if you were paying attention, Ero Sennin, we wouldn't have wasted our time. Still, the sage didn't seem bothered. It's not my fault you guys got the address wrong. Naruto and Gaara looked while Haku seemed more mildly upset that their laboring had all been a waste. The drab fence was actually starting to look good, apart from some spots that Naruto had missed during his enthusiastic strokes. The Sennin smirked at him. What's the problem? You've done that ancient buzzard down there a favor. Just paint both fences if your panties are in such a knot. We don't wear panties, you sick bastard. Naruto was deeply offended, but his friends were once again more level-headed. Gaara and Haku had moved along to the opposite side of the empty road, preparing for another round of delightful, menial labor. Screw this. Naruto leapt down from the wall while quickly forming seals, shadow clone jutsu. 20 clones attacked the correct unpainted fence with replicated paint brushes, again reminding Gaara and Haku what a surprisingly helpful talent it was. Jiraiya merely flipped a page and sighed, wondering how he had survived all those years ago after training his first genin team. 2 weeks and 26 D-rank missions later for Squad 2, it was another ordinary, sunny day in Konoha. Where the hell is Ero Sensei? Naruto sat on a stump in the field that they had begun using for their training. Gaara stood quietly with his arms crossed. A deep frown graced his face. He was supposed to be here nearly an hour ago. Haku also found it unusual for the sage to be late, simply because he never had been until that point. Maybe we should speak to Hokage-sama and accept a mission without him. We don't really need Jiraiya-sensei's help when walking dogs. Gaara agreed irritably. Maybe he's just peeping again. Naruto yawned. He's so in love with his new book, he hasn't even bothered to show us a new jutsu yet. It was another fact that bothered them all deeply. After a short trip to the Hokage's office, the three genin waited for the third to acknowledge their presence. Is there any trouble? The Hokage asked, noting their peeved looks as he took a drag on his pipe. Not unless you count the fact that Ero-sensei's gone missing, Naruto answered shortly. We even checked around the girls' locker rooms. Where the heck did he go? The Sandaime sighed, already aware of the situation. That's right. I apologize for not giving you an earlier notification. I'm afraid you'll be without your instructor for a short while. Haku was alarmed. You know where he is, Hokage-sama. Is he alright? Maybe he was useful for once and offered to go on a high-ranked mission. Gaara speculated, giving him far more credit than he should have. He's alive and well, the Hokage answered, and Naruto looked somewhat annoyed at the news. Your sensei was arrested late last night actually, for. He riffled through a pile of papers and read aloud the charges, 1 count of trespassing and 2 counts of harassment. The blonde snorted again, knowing what that meant. No one has posted bail as of yet. I believe he'll be performing community service once he is released. Typical. Gaara was to say, rightfully humiliated that the Sennin couldn't pull himself together for his students when it came to his research. Apparently it did get him into trouble once in a while. Will we still have missions? Haku wore a pained look equivalent to being punched in the face. To their relief, the Hokage nodded, yes. Although you will need a subsuit for the time being. As if on cue, the aforementioned subsuit arrived. You asked for me, Hokage-sama. A young woman with fierce brown eyes and clad in an overcoat entered the office without knocking, and bumped into Haku on her way in. Come in, Anko. The Sandaime turned back to the members of Squad 2. As I was saying, you are required to have a stand-in instructor until Jiraiya is fit to return. Since Anko here is the only available Junin at this time, she will oversee your missions with you. The three boys observed the Kunoichi who was assigned as their instructor, each with their own unique perspective. Naruto frowned. We don't need some weird lady to tell us what to do. Anko gave each of the boys a once-over glance. So I've got to babysit these maggots, huh, Hokage-sama? She looked amused at Naruto and Haku's offended faces. How long do you think this will take? Hiruzen took another drag. I can't honestly tell you how long this position will be yours, Anko. At least until Jiraiya is processed, sentenced and then approved to return to work. She shrugged and Gaara gave her a questioning look. Maggots. Why do we have to have some ugly hag to tell us what to do? Naruto complained and Anko didn't seem very bothered by his description of her at all. Ero-sennin never helped out anyway, so what's the big deal? Hey, I'm not gonna sit around and watch you three newbies shovel horse-s and scrub walls. Anko was just as disdainful as Naruto at the moment. Tell me we can at least have a C-rank mission, Hokage-sama. Something interesting. Aren't they about ready for one? She whines more than Jiraiya-sensei. Haku shuddered. There was a moment of thought as the Hokage considered the request, again riffling irritably through the scrolls on his crowded desk. Squad 2 has completed 26 D-rank missions so far. Naruto and Haku were on edge. A long-awaited C-rank mission. It was something they had constantly been asking Jiraiya about during their first week, which he had forcibly argued as too dangerous for you genin brats. Now shut up. You're distracting me. Anko frowned. PSH. 26. That's good. So what do you say, Hokage-sama? I mean, they're with me for cripe's sake. Her method of persuasion is straightforward. Haku thought to himself, finding that he was slightly intimidated by her forceful personality. Yeah. Naruto decided to lend his voice. We're ready, Hokage-sama. Very well. Hiruzen felt Anko had a point. A simple C-level mission is still open. I suppose you can have it if you insist on the matter. Gaara smirked at the good fortune. Jiraiya was too lazy to even consider taking them on a higher rank mission so early on. Naruto's opinion of Anko had done a complete 180. She got us a C rank mission. This lady is awesome. Anko looked pleased with herself and the expressions on the genins' faces. You will be guarding a man named Tazuna, a master bridge builder, as you escort him back to the land of waves, the Hokage said simply. This trip should only take a few days at the most. He eyed the boys. Sir, I expect you'll all put your best effort in for this mission. You got it, Hokage-sama. Naruto then turned to his teammates. This is great. Our first C rank. Anko nodded, understanding the details of the mission. Tazuna, I expect, is waiting outside. The third finished. Go meet him and leave immediately. They followed Anko over to a bearded man seated on a bench, sipping sake leisurely. He looked up expectantly as they approached. Tazuna-san, Anko showed a bit more respect than what the genin had expected. I am Mitarashi Anko. Are you about ready to get going now? Yeah. He then looked at Naruto, Haku and Gaara. What the hell is this? Trusting my life to a bunch of kids. Gaara gave him an annoyed scowl. You've got a problem with that. Naruto snapped, unable to control himself. We're ninja. If you want to give us a hard time, then go back to the land of waves by yourself. Tazuna sniffed, gladly. Please forgive Naruto, Tazuna-san. Haku didn't want to create unrest with their client, but we are ninja, and you can be assured you'll be perfectly safe with us as your guards. I doubt it. Haku's sweat dropped. Well, I did my best. I suppose we'll just have to deal with his attitude until we get him back to the land of waves. Anko smirked, proud of how Haku tried to be welcoming and how he gracefully accepted Tazuna's criticism. Naruto, on the other hand, clearly wasn't fond of the old windbag at all. Let's get going then. The Kunoichi was growing impatient. Don't knock it before you try it. What do you think Ero-sensei got up to last night? Naruto wondered out loud. Haku and Gaara weren't very inclined to think about it. Whatever his inappropriate behavior had warranted the night before, it was enough to land him in jail and most likely related to his perverted habits. I believe the issue began after he thought he could get away with his antics in Konoha again, Haku answered thoughtfully. Sensei is normally careful when he sets out on his research. He typically goes outside of the village to do it, where there is less enforcement. Though in Konoha, he is taking a chance. Although maybe this will finally teach him a lesson. Haku hoped in the back of his mind. We'll have to break his habit, Gaara decided, by whatever means. He'll thank us for it later. Naruto nodded in agreement. Yeah, we do owe him a kick in the head, don't we? He avoided a large puddle in the dirt path as they marched on. Tazuna wasn't fond of their chatter. Will you three can it? All your girlish gossip or whatever, you should be paying more attention. I don't think thugs are keen on a quiet attack, Tazuna-san. We'll know if there's danger. Gaara said matter-of-factly and Naruto snickered as the old man huffed in annoyance. Anko seemed relaxed. In the event of an attack, noise isn't always a bad thing, she pointed out. It's a good thing they're able to communicate with each other. It gives us an advantage in a fight. Haku was about to rethink her words of wisdom before she sighed irritably, but geez, I wish someone would show up. It gets really boring when nothing happens. Gaara said nothing, but in his own mind agreed with her. Where was the action? Apparently C-rank missions weren't what they had pictured in their heads. Haku fiddled with the strap of the backpack he wore. Its weight was doubled, carrying both rations for himself and Gaara. This was the arrangement that had been agreed upon so that Gaara could bring his larger, self-fashioned sand gourd with him. Haku's mind wandered as they walked. He remembered the kindness of Hiroshi, the man that had fostered him until he was brought to the Leaf Village. Memories of his birthplace, his parents and the anguish of being orphaned briefly surfaced. Haku tried to put them out of his mind, realizing how inappropriate a time it was to reminisce. His train of thought was interrupted when a sudden shout of warning came from Anko. All of his senses were again at full alert. Haku watched as a short distance ahead, as if it were in slow motion, a dark, cloaked shinobi left the shadows and lunged at Tazuna, with metal claws outstretched for the K. The dark-haired boy called for the old man to move, to run, or to defend himself in some way, but his terrified cry never escaped his T. Gaara appeared beside the bridge builder. Wasn't he behind me? Haku watched in amazement as his friend stood beside Tazuna with his arms folded, ready to clash with an opponent. The enemy's weapon met a wall of sand and Gaara merely glared at the dark figure, raring to fight back. He was also aware that their client was scared speechless behind him and unwilling to run for it. The dark ninja leapt back when his attack failed, and sized up Gaara's unique defensive ability to decide how to avoid it to reach his target. Haku's eyes were wide, but he didn't see Naruto or Anko anywhere. He did see, however, a second dark ninja leap from his cover in a tree on the side of the road. What do I? His rational thought ceased as the second unknown shinobi moved toward him, iron claws catching the sunlight as they appeared from under another tattered cloak. Haku felt his knees lock and he wondered why he was standing his ground when he had absolutely no intention of attacking. Instinct, overpowering his mind, the instinct to run, but his body simply wouldn't comply. Haku-kun. He felt a hand close like a vice around his upper arm and shove him off balance towards the ground. He fell gracefully. He didn't realize that the unidentified enemy had come as close as he had until he watched the claws rake down Naruto's face and continue to his navel, him open like a paper bag of F's. Naruto. Haku felt his head hit the ground and the impact made his eyes lose focus for a few seconds. Naruto-kun. This can't be happening. Why didn't I do anything? Eyes blurred, Haku squinted and saw the shadow clone that had saved his life revert to a puff of smoke. Immediately his brain was back up to speed and Haku felt his hand quickly grab 3 senbon. He slid his feet back beneath him and stood. His nerve returned to him after Naruto, his clone rather, had demonstrated such bravery. The enemy ninja cursed under his breath that he had missed, but before he could round on Haku again with his gauntlet, a mass of black snakes enveloped him from behind. Anko smirked, 2 of you ha. Let's have some fun. With unexpected strength she pulled back on the shadow snakes ensnaring her opponent and sent him hurtling back and down to the ground. Haku watched on shaky, anticipatory legs, wondering how she'd finish him. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A dozen replications of Naruto materialized and dove recklessly at the startled nin, knocking him senseless with many painful kicks to the head and gut as he struggled to free himself from Anko's snare. Across the way, there was an agonized scream and Haku looked over to Gaara, who was methodically crushing sections of the first attacker's body with a cloud of concentrated, merciless sand. Tazuna stood near him, looking away from the ordeal. Knowing that it was over nearly as soon as it had begun, Haku put away his senbon, ashamed that he had been nothing but a burden to his companions. After beating the enemy ninja into total submission, Anko's shadow snakes bound the pair to a nearby tree. After a short moment of eyeing their Hitai-8, she sneered at him, well, if it isn't Gozu and Meizu, the demon brothers of the Hidden Mist Village. Earlier I noticed that we were being followed but I didn't think it'd be the 2 of you. Naruto, Haku and Gaara looked on silently next to Tazuna as the 2 mist nin slowly regained consciousness. Gozu, the elder brother, spoke up, when did you begin to suspect us? Anko snorted, any moron would have seen that stupid puddle on the path. It's the middle of the freaking summer and it hasn't rained in days. Seriously, you could have been more thoughtful. Fire country summers are much drier than in mist. Naruto looked startled, he had nearly stepped in that stupid puddle, it was so convincing. But it seemed that both Gaara and Haku had been just as oblivious on the matter as he had been. How the hell were they hiding in a puddle? After sending a message to Leaf and they abandoned the demon brothers, they continued on, still rattled that they had been ambushed so early. After a quarter of a mile, Anko stopped walking. Tazuna-san, she said solemnly, let's get one thing straight here. I'm not an idiot. I did indeed notice those 2 morons earlier, but I still chose to let them attack us, because I had to see what or who they were after. The genin halted, understanding her meaning. When we accepted this mission, it was C rank, standard protection from robbers and highwaymen and whatever. Anko continued matter-of-factly, but those mist nin sure came a heck of a long way up to the fire country and not without a reason. She frowned, you never said you had ninja after you. That's different from having Summer try to rob you, wouldn't you say? Why would ninja be after you, old man? Naruto was genuinely curious. Gaara and Haku listened intently for his answer. You're right, Tazuna's scratchy voice lowered, those ninja intended to kill me. Why? Haku had a hard time not sounding alarmed. They were sent by Gato, a shipping magnate who's been smuggling drugs and illegal goods in and out of the land of waves for many years now, holding a tight grip on the lives of the people who live there. Tazuna explained, I'm constructing a bridge though, one that will connect our village to the mainland and increase trade and commerce. Bet the greedy bastard wouldn't like you freeing your town and messing with his crime ring, huh? Anko quickly understood, so he KU and this bridge of yours doesn't get built. Fabulous. We're in deep over our heads this time. It was selfish of you to ask for cheap, low-level protection when these genin have so little experience. But why didn't you just say you had ninja after you in the first place? Naruto asked. My village doesn't have the money to pay for high-level protection, Tazuna admitted, the people there are suffering from sickness and poverty. I can't afford to hire shinobi who are above trainee level. We're beyond the scope of our mission if you have other shinobi after you. Gaara said simply, making the old man glare at the ground. So, I suppose you'll quit on me because I don't have the money for you, eh? Tazuna inquired darkly, not looking at his temporary guards. Are you kidding? Anko grinned, money or no money, this is gonna be great. It's been a while since I've had a mission as unpredictable and meaningful as this. And it'll be good training for the maggots. They need to learn to adapt to Dire Straits missions. The three genin gave Anko nonplussed looks. Tazuna hadn't counted on her to still be willing to protect him. The idea of it excited the genin after a few moments, and Anko's confidence made them bold. Yeah, old man. We'll get you home. Naruto grinned at him, we've got you covered. We've already set out and it would be pointless to turn back. Haku figured, it'd be a good experience to help you return to your village and build your bridge, Tazuna-san. Haku felt the need to be as objective as possible while on a mission. It was Gaara's way of agreeing while maintaining his detachment. The details of the mission had changed and Anko was more thrilled by the prospective danger than repelled by it. Team 2 continued on, hoping the real-world experience would be payment enough for their efforts. Later, as they crowded into a less than roomy motorboat to cross a bay enveloped in mist, Haku was again lost in his thoughts. Occasionally he looked up to survey their surroundings. When those ninja attacked I just froze up. Haku was still unable to forgive himself. I just stood there like an idiot. I'd definitely BS if it hadn't been for Naruto. He looked out onto the water, which was surprisingly calm. I can't be a burden anymore. This is real. I'm a ninja now and I have to get serious. Haku was frustrated that Gaara and Naruto handled the situation so remarkably well. Weren't they even slightly frightened? Well, Naruto might have been. But Gaara fears few things in life, and I can't say that it's a good thing. He paused, wondering what good berating himself to be a coward would do. No, I won't feel sorry for myself. It's pointless. I have to focus on the mission and protect Tazuna and everyone else, for that matter. I can put my team at risk if I don't focus. Hey Haku, are you feeling okay? Naruto turned to him, remembering the ambush from earlier. You're not hurt or anything, are you? I'm fine, Naruto-kun. The blonde nodded and leaned back in his spot and turned to Gaara, who also looked tense. What about you, Gaara? This water makes me nervous, the red-haired boy admitted. I don't swim well. Naruto laughed but quickly muffled himself after he recalled that they were still in enemy territory. Haku looked at Gaara, understanding that he did know how to swim, but that he wouldn't be able to with a bursum gourd attached to his back. It was now completely comprised of sand and the weight would be unmanageable in water. We're all mortal, Haku firmed his resolve after talking to his friends. This mission can only succeed unless we all work together. The next ninja we meet. I'll be ready. Once back on land, the Leaf Ninja and their client continued their trek through a dense forest, through which would be the quickest way to their destination. Anko was clearly more guarded than she had been in the Fire Country. Those last two were Chunin. Next time it will be a Junin. How does someone become a bridge builder, anyway? Naruto wanted to get to know their client, the same way a person becomes a lumberjack or street paver. Anko snorted in laughter with Naruto while Tazuna bit back. It's a necessary occupation in the land of waves, you stupid kid. With all the waterways around here, bridges are pretty common, wouldn't you say? I worked hard to become a top engineer. Naruto got over his little joke. Yeah, sorry old man. It's just building bridges seems pretty lame. How do you do it? It takes a large amount of engineering, money and labor to get done. A combined effort produces great things. He answered, but I won't get technical with you. That tiny brain of yours already seems stretched to capacity. Anko snorted again and Haku and Gaara couldn't help but smirk. Shut the hell up. Naruto didn't like insults to his intelligence. It was just another way people underestimated him, which often proved foolish. Out of the corner of his eye, Naruto watched a nettle of ferns quiver in a manner that didn't appear to be caused by a breeze. After drawing a kunai from his holster, he threw the knife with startling precision directly into the offending undergrowth. There was a thud as the knife made contact with a solid object, followed by a small squeak of terror. His companions didn't appreciate the gesture that much either. "What are you doing?" Gaara gave him a sideways glance of annoyance. "Naruto-kun, you shouldn't be throwing kunai at random." Haku scolded, "What if you hit an innocent bystander? Relax, would you?" Naruto moved the foliage aside and revealed the area where his kunai had sunk deep into the bark of an ash tree, a few inches above a rabbit's head. "See? The little bunny's okay." Naruto lifted up the terrified animal and stroked its ear soothingly. "Put that stinking thing down, Naruto." Anko sighed. He looked at her with an expression of protest. Haku observed the rabbit and commented, "That rabbit is white." Naruto continued to calm the small creature. "So? That means that it has most likely been bred in captivity," Haku went on, "to be a distraction." "A distraction." Naruto put the rabbit down and it bounded away. Its white fur contrasted with the surrounding verdant undergrowth. Anko was on edge, also noting Haku's observation, even before the sound of rushing metal through the air came to her ears. "Move." Haku pulled Tazuna down into the undergrowth near Naruto, and Gaara and Anko ducked out of the path of a huge sword that was sent spiraling towards them with a great force. The Zanbato that they evaded collided with the top of a tree, biting deep into the wood. They looked up and beheld another ninja standing on the blade that had embedded itself into the tree. Quickly regaining their feet, they formed a protective ring around Tazuna, silent and anxious. The gentle sound of Gaara's sand was reassuring to Haku and Naruto. Anko narrowed her eyes. "Damn it. I thought we'd at least get a bit farther before another one showed up. Looks like this is it." Haku, for a brief moment, held his breath as he observed their assailant, but there was no mistaking it. Haku recognized the shinobi to be the same man with the bandaged face he had seen long ago. His eyes were wide in disbelief and he felt his hands close around the senbon he had tucked away in his gi. "This man. I've seen him before. He must be another hit man from the Mist Village after Tazuna. But he's Junin." His grip on the needles tightened considerably. The Mist Ninja glared down at them. "Mitarashi Anko," a deep baritone pierced the air like a knife, "Special Junin of the Leaf Village. It seems you've had no trouble with the Demon Brothers." "I know you, Momoki Zabuza, one of the 7 shinobi swordsmen of the Mist." Anko's knowledge was also well-rounded. "You are a missing nin and are one of those responsible for the attempted coup d'etat in Mist a few years ago." Haku didn't like the sound of that. He tried to overthrow the Mizukage. Zabuza smirked. "Impressive, but that's enough with the pleasantries." Naruto, Haku and Gaara tensed as the Nukanen formed seals, hidden mist jutsu. A thick haze enveloped the young leaf shinobi and the mist ninja disappeared from their sight. As visibility quickly diminished, Anko gritted her teeth. "This is bad." She turned to her genin. "Stay in formation and guard Tazuna." Naruto nodded grimly. "Yeah, Anko-sensei. Quote. There is no escape. With the silenter technique I can KO an opponent with one fatal blow." The boys of Squad 2 were unnerved even further as Zabuza's voice rang out through the mist, seemingly from all directions. "I can't tell where it's coming from." Naruto turned his head frantically left and right to see if he could decipher where the enemy was truly hidden. "Calm down," Anko warned, not wanting them to begin to panic. "He's using the Utsusemi no Jutsu. He uses it to project his voice from all directions, so don't move." Haku wondered if maybe Senbon would be of any practical use at a moment where he may need to counterattack, seeing both Naruto and Gaara wielding kunai as they stood in a ring around their apprehensive client. But there was no time for thinking now, only time to react. Gaara estimated it to be about 4 seconds until the Nukanen reappeared. Unfortunately, it was where they least expected him to. Naruto felt his heart leap into his mouth as the ghost-like mist nin had penetrated the defensive formation and had his horse's sword raised, preparing to cleave Tazuna into 2. Again, wild fear gripped the genin, disabling them from countering. Anko, who was still a few yards away, also couldn't respond in time. With a bestial snarl, Zabuza brought his big blade down, his eyes fixed on the old man at the center, but instead connected with a barrier of sand that had automatically formed to shield Gaara, which coincidentally saved Tazuna's life as well. This instance somewhat increased the red-haired boy's nerve, and his hands unconsciously formed a familiar seal, sand coffin. Sand enveloped the mist nin that had been temporarily delayed from his failed attack, and Haku and Naruto watched in grim excitement as Gaara finished his S-counter, sand burial. The tomb of sand that had enveloped the Nukkenen and his Zanbato imploded with such speed and force that it crushed him instantly, earning a gasp from Anko and Tazuna. Haku and Naruto remained silent, having witnessed it before on inanimate objects. It didn't go as planned. The target that Gaara was certain he'd K-splashed into nothing more than water and once again put everyone on edge. He substituted with a water clone. Haku's brain was reeling, so where's the real one? The four of them turned after hearing a cry of great effort as Zabuza reappeared by Anko, who was just barely able to dodge his enormous sword. You leave them out of this, you eyebrow-less bastard. She spat furiously, still able to creatively insult while under a great amount of stress. I'll finish you myself. Zabuza smirked beneath his mask. We'll see. Anko began with a diversion of shuriken and kunai, which as she had expected, were deflected with ease by the Mist Nin's huge sword. While gradually edging the fight farther away from the genin and closer to a lake's edge, she attacked more fiercely, shadow snakes. The ruthless attack momentarily caught him by surprise as he leapt back, raising his sword and watching with sharp, calculating eyes as the snakes coiled around the blade, biting futilely at the gleaming metal. The snakes were surprisingly resistant and held fast as the blade's edge C into F. There was a pause and Anko had no time to brace herself as, with an inhuman amount of strength, Zabuza swung his sword, snakes and Anko attached, and hurled them. She righted herself as she soared through the hazy air and landed on bent knee on the water's surface. She's awesome, Naruto crowed, impressed with her athleticism, but still appropriately fearful of the current state of things. Haku, Gaara and their clients silently agreed. Zabuza casually walked out onto the water towards Anko, seemingly unfazed by her valiant efforts. After a few milliseconds of watching a bead of sweat travel down the side of the Kanoiki's face, he began to form seals and rushed at her. Anticipating his movements, Anko drew a kunai and steadied her chakra-glued feet to the calm water's surface, preparing to counter. As he was barely 3 feet ahead of her, he vanished, and she staggered suddenly in spite of herself. She caught herself with an outstretched hand, pushing off the water's surface with chakra, and crushed another water clone with a roundhouse kick. She continued to spin and a large serpent darted from her coat and sunk its fangs into another clone, dispersing it. Just as she had felt she had the upper hand in close quarters, he reappeared next to her, completing his jutsu, water prison technique. Her cry of surprise was set off as she was surrounded by a swirling sphere of water, much to the horror of the genin who was still guarding Tazuna. Anko ended her struggle and gave a brash look at Naruto and his companions as they stood motionlessly, almost like she expected them to free her. After a long, painful moment of deliberation, they realized that was their best option. Haku made up a strategy on the spot, and although he was certain that it was doomed to fail, he decided that with some improvisation it may help them survive against the Junin at least for a short while. Gaara-kun, you need stay with Tazuna-san, Haku said quietly. Naruto-kun and I can take him. Naruto couldn't help but grin at Gaara's alarmed face. Yeah, stay with the old man, Gaara-kun. On cue, he turned to the dark-haired boy. So, what's the plan? It was rather simple. Shadow clones, lots of them. The blonde nodded. Roger. Gaara scowled as his foolish friends ran ahead towards the lake, leaving him to ensure Tazuna's safety, and hearing the distant shout of Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Along the way. Do they do this often? Tazuna inquired, stunned by their actions. Gaara wore a resigned expression. Always. The old man smiled slightly. Zabuza's water clone waited on shore while he held the water prison jutsu containing Anko firmly with his right arm. He glared at the approaching genin. What are those idiots up to? The kid in the orange jumpsuit created a dozen shadow clones, all of which dove at the Mist Nin's clone, with Haku in tow, Senbon at the ready. As Naruto and his clones tackled the Nukkenen, Haku pulled back, as if to wait for something. With one swipe of his sword, Zabuza destroyed half of the shadow clones crowding him, and continued onward, much to the terror of the real Naruto, and Gaara who stood watching from afar. Haku stumbled backwards, not expecting the Junin to switch targets so abruptly. Haku. Naruto's voice reached a shockingly high pitch. The Zanbato hacked through Haku's midsection and Anko was about ready to scream a string of profanities at her captor until she witnessed what she had believed to be Haku splash into a puddle of water. A water clone, Zabuza grunted, and then smirked as if he were entertained. I thought so. He turned back, raising the blade, and cleaved through the remainder of the shadow clones. Naruto and Haku, who had transformed himself into his blonde friend, immediately leapt away. Noting that it was senseless to stay in disguise, Haku released his jutsu and continued on, preparing to attack the real Zabuza. The Mist Nin avoided Naruto, who had intended to plunge his kunai into his opponent's arm, and planted a solid kick to the young Genin's back, sending him crashing painfully to the ground. Although his mind screamed in protest, Gaara did not leave Tazuna's side, aware that it might mean the man's death if he did so to help Haku, who was now on his own. Haku could feel the separate chakra of the water clone that chased after him. Even if he had been able to ignore his growing fear and attempt to save his substitute Junin instructor, he knew there was little chance he could escape his pursuer. I've got to destroy that water clone. My Senbon can only do that if I hit the clone's weak points. And he was aware he was asking much of himself while running as fast as he could at the enemy ninja holding Anko prisoner. I've got to try. Haku leapt up, gluing his feet to the side of a tree and twisting himself around to get a clear view of the water clone. His eyes went straight to the Zanbato that was raised, and he did his best to aim for the N and C regions of the replication. The dark-haired boy abandoned the tree shortly after and cursed himself after Zabuza's water clone easily deflected the projectiles without slowing down. If he gets any closer, I'm done for. He kept moving, twisting and diving through the lofty tree branches with great speed. He listened to the nearing crashes that echoed behind him as the water clone devastated the spots he had lingered in only seconds before. What was worse, he realized, was that his purser had efficiently prevented him from getting any closer to Anko, who wore a horrified look as she watched him weave through the treetops with a huge Zanbato at his heels. I can't do this, he's wearing me out. Haku could indistinctly hear Naruto calling to him, not far behind, I have to get rid of this clone and I can only do it if. He paused, and tumbled away as the horse's sword came hurtling down next to him, showering him in splinters and leaves. Haku felt his sandals connect with the ground and he pelted back into the open, closer to Anko now, but he had allowed the clone to get too close. I have no choice. The dark-haired boy made eye contact with the QB container, who was a short distance off, creating another batch of shadow clones. He pivoted and faced the clone, feeling his stomach turn over, and raced through a good number of seals as the false Mist Nin closed in on him, ready to finish him off. Gaara, can you give me a hand maybe? Naruto hollered, sending his kamikaze shadow clones barreling into the water clone, mere steps away from Haku. The blonde grinned as a cloud of sand joined the fray, attempting to encase the water clone, but the young Genin was still overwhelmed as Naruto's shadow clones were apart and Gaara was just too far away to pose a notable threat. Their distraction, which had granted a few precious seconds, allowed Haku to finish his sealing, Suten, Water Dragon Blast. Anko and her captor glanced behind him as a large current of water rose up into the air, spiraling and coiling, dragon-like in shape. It dove downward and circled once around Haku as Zabuza's water clone leapt back to avoid it. Anko grinned openly as the current shot forward again and completely blew away the once perilous water clone and the remainder of Naruto's shadow clones. The Kanoiki was totally flummoxed as Haku raised his hand, not forming any kind of seals at all, and redirected the current back at the real Zabuza. Naruto staggered to his feet and watched wide-eyed as the Mist Nukenin pulled his arm out of the sphere containing Anko and avoided the attack that would have surely ended the battle. Anko spat out a mouthful of water in disdain after being released from the jutsu and watched guardedly as Zabuza settled himself on dry land near Haku, Zanbato in hand. Haku stood close to the pond's edge, ready to use water jutsu if the Mist Shinobi decided to attack again. Curiously enough, he didn't. Zabuza merely stood wearing a thoughtful yet mocking sort of expression. His growl-like voice shook Haku to the core. So, it is you. I thought so. Naruto stood frozen, not understanding at all what the Nukenin was talking about, and quickly glanced back at Gaara who still had his sand shield surrounding Tazuna, also listening. The dark-haired boy clenched his fists tightly around his senbon. What are you talking about? The swordsman's amused chuckle was dark. You think I don't remember you? The beggar kid from the water country, all those years ago. I'm impressed you're still alive. Haku gritted his teeth. How does he remember me? One look at me and after all the time that's passed. You're wasting your time in Leaf, kid. You're from that clan. It's obvious from your abilities. Zabuza smirked as Haku suddenly became all ears. You possess the Hyoten, a Kekkei Genkai which controls water and wind to create ice. It's not something I haven't seen before. The Hyoten. There are others like me. Haku felt compelled to ask these questions aloud but knew it was foolish enough to let his guard down, let alone listen to the, possibly deceptive, words of an enemy Nukenon, but he can't be lying. He knows about my Kekkei Genkai. There's no way you'll fully master your ability in the fire country, kid, Zabuza snorted, resting his Zanbato leisurely on his shoulder. Real training for people like you resides in Kirigakure, there's no way two ways about it. What are you saying? Naruto barked. Haku's a leaf ninja. No way he'd go to the Mist Village for something as stupid as that. Oh really? Zabuza glared at Naruto, who was about ready to pounce in a mix of confusion and anger. Without even looking over his shoulder for confirmation, Zabuza sidestepped the shadow snakes that Anko had aimed at the back of his head, and gave a lasting stare to Haku. This isn't over. Anko cursed loudly as the Mist Nin disappeared, presumably to regroup. Gaara and Tazuna were cautiously crossing the field to where Naruto stood and considered Haku, who appeared to have taken Zabuza's words very seriously. You okay, kid? Anko rested her hand on Haku's shoulder while he absently put away his senbon. Oh. He looked startled. There's not a scratch on me, sensei, but I should be asking you that question. Naruto nodded. Yeah, we were pretty freaked out when he got you stuck in that weird bubble, Anko sensei. She waved him off, not much bothered by what had transpired. We got off easy. It could have gone much, much worse. Can you imagine what would have happened to Tazuna-san if Haku hadn't distracted that brute? I would have had a rough time. Gaara answered and Tazuna smirked, more appreciative of his bodyguards after encountering the powerful Miss Junin. Yeah, you would have. Anko murmured, we should get going. He may be gone for now, but he'll be back for Tazuna later, I'm sure. I live close by. Tazuna seemed truly relieved to be alive. If we're lucky enough to avoid any more ninja, it should be less than an hour's walk. Yes. And when we get there, can we find something to eat? I'm starving. Naruto inquired, upset that they had skipped breakfast that morning after Jiraiya had not shown up. That's a good idea. Anko agreed, also appearing to be a bit peckish. Maybe they'll have some dango in town. They set out again, exhausted, hungry and kunai within reach. More than ever, Gaara seemed irritable due to the fact that he had seen the least action of any of them. Granted, he was the best suited to defend Tazuna should Zabuza reappear. And the knowledge that Haku actually knew a missing nin from the Mist Village was also unsettling. Gaara knew that as much as he could have put up a fight against the Nukenon, he would have been undoubtedly critically wounded or worse if Haku had not distracted Zabuza. He knows about Haku's Kekkei Genkai as well. Gaara frowned inwardly, keeping a wary eye on their client. That puts us at a disadvantage, no matter how strong Haku-kun may be. Naruto patted Haku on the back, grinning as they walked. That was awesome, Haku-kun. You blew bandage face away with that jutsu. Haku sighed, rubbing his arm humbly. I'm not much of a fighter at all without water. I was just lucky, I suppose. But still, luck or whatever it was, you chased off a Junin. Naruto emphasized, Junin by waving his arms about. Of course Gaara-kun and I helped. Of course. Gaara agreed tersely, not wanting to give all the credit to the tall, frail-looking boy. Will you three shut up? Their client looked irked once again. Whenever you start talking, we get ambushed. Do you notice a recurring pattern? Coincidence? Naruto insisted. Besides, everyone's still in One Piece, so it isn't really a problem. Anko smirked. You'll get used to it eventually, Tazuna. This is where you live? Haku asked Tazuna as they entered a desolate-looking village. It showed clear signs of poverty and hunger. The dirt streets weren't very crowded and buildings appeared to be vandalized and even uninhabitable. Roadside food stands had little to offer, with only a few items sitting on the dusty shelves, untouched. It isn't really what you'd call living. Tazuna replied grimly. I don't suppose they have any real medical facilities or such in this area then? Anko asked, noting a sickly homeless person seated on the side of the street, shivering with cold. There are a few. Tazuna answered slowly, the real problem is affording anything around here. Gato has taxes on nearly every necessity there is in this town, and not many people are as financially stable as my family. He paused, but even so, everyone has lost something precious to Gato and it has to end. The people cannot go on living like this. Gaara looked down as he felt a small hand tug on the sash tied around his waist. A small child, maybe 4 or 5, with tousled hair and a round, dirty face looked up at him in silence. At first he didn't understand until he watched the pleading brown eyes begin to water and tear. Begging. Not noticing that he had fallen behind, his companions continued on, discussing the village's hardships, and Gaara stood in the center of the street, watching the starving little girl tug desperately on his sash. I know suffering. Gaara's eyes softened considerably and he kneeled down, removing the girl's hand from his sash. You're hungry, he said quietly, and he watched the child struggle to give an answer. Gaara fished through his back pouch, not bothering to count how much money he had retrieved, and handed it to her. Here. She looked confused. It was probably been the first time anyone had given her anything. Go on, you can keep it. He patted her head gently and she grinned, deeply grateful to the kind stranger with a large gourd. Gaara stood and watched as she tottered away towards a shabby-looking young woman who he guessed was the girl's mother, apparently bartering with a shopkeeper. After having one glance at what her daughter held up to her, the woman looked up frantically, making eye contact with the red-haired boy. She seemed to understand. So he left, not wanting to think about how many people were in serious need of help. He would give up the shoes on his feet if it would do them any good. The only way to break the shackles of oppression chaining the people down in the village was to end Gato's tyranny, and I will. Tsunami, I'm back, Tazuna grunted as he shuffled into his house, which was noticeably larger and more stylish than many of the homes they had passed by on the way. A young woman with dark indigo hair and black eyes poked her head out of the kitchen while drying a dish, smiling. Dad, I'm glad you're back. Did you have a safe trip? Yes. He then gestured to the 4 people standing quietly behind him. These ninja from Konoha have saved my life at least twice today. I've invited them to stay with us until they are prepared for their journey home. Tsunami smiled at Anko's group. Welcome. I hope you'll stay for dinner tonight. We'd be happy to have you. Naruto grinned. Sure, we'll stay. I'm starving, Anko smiled while she pinched the boy's lips shut. Try to be more respectful, Naruto. These people have invited us into their home without even knowing us. Anko went on, removing her hand from his face, and he nodded, somewhat annoyed. Gaara untied his gourd and set it down carefully before taking a seat between Naruto and Haku, who had just been served tea by Tsunami. She looked up as a small figure slipped into the room. Inari, there you are. Come and meet the nice ninja who've been looking after Grandpa. A small, 8-year-old boy trudged inside to stand by Tazuna, his shifty gaze examining the shinobi one at a time from beneath his hat. Ninja. That's right, Naruto confirmed with a grin. We've fought off dangerous enemy ninja to bring your grandpa home safe and sound. Inari frowned. You don't look that tough. Gaara regarded Tazuna's grandson while he and Haku sipped their ginseng. Naruto gave a reserved glance to Inari. Is that so? Well, you'll be impressed to hear that we've saved his life more than once during the course of the day. So what? The boy snapped. You save people or whatever, but it doesn't matter because in the end everyone else eventually. So what's the point? Without warning, Inari turned on his heel and fled, leaving his mother calling after him as his footsteps thundered up the stairs, leaving Naruto deeply insulted. Man, what's his problem? Naruto wondered, slurping his tea in irritation. The same question occurred to Anko, Haku and Gaara. You'll have to forgive Inari. He's a bit sensitive about things like that. Tsunami said with a sigh. Would anyone like more tea? What do you mean he isn't yet? Gato sat behind his desk, glaring at Zabuza. I didn't hire you to play around with them, Zabuza. Stop wasting my time. The Mist Nin's voice was dangerously low. There's been a change of plans. What? The statement had the conniving shipping magnate worried. There's a boy, a very interesting prospect. Zabuza went on cryptically. It's very rare to come across such a valuable find. Gathering his nerve, Gato went on. You've already been paid half. You hold up your end of the bargain and pay the bridge builder as we agreed, and after that, you can do whatever the hell you want. Zabuza's eyes narrowed. You have no place to describe to me the things I can and can't do, you brainless parasite. He paused, smirking again as he thought. the Hyoten boy. Before this is over, I'll have a fine tool to finish what I've started. If that's all you've got to say, then get out of here and get back to work, Gato replied curtly, fearing the Zanbato slung on the Nukanen's back. I told you I don't care what you do so long as you K the old man, got it? Zabuza ignored him, walking out of the office deep in thought, and closed the door behind him with a resounding bang. Two bodyguards on either side of Gato's desk gave him incredulous looks after the unstable Junin departed, both concerned that their lives could end suddenly should the Mist Nin become angered. I don't trust that bastard, not as far as I can throw him. Gato ground out, his fists clenching. If he's sidetracked, there's sure to be a double cross. That bastard won't get the job done on time. What do we do about him then? A gaunt-looking guard asked, his hand resting on the sword tied at his side. We finish off the old man without him, the shipping magnate decided. Once he finds this interesting prospect of his, we K him and the kid, just to make things fun. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.